Today's episode of Sales Players is brought to you by the Salesblazer community created by Salesforce. Building a strong network is critical in this business, which is why I'm personally inviting you to join the free Salesblazers Slack community. Salesblazers is a place to learn new skills, connect with peers, ask questions, and grow your career. Members of Salesblazers get free access to networking opportunities, expert sales advice, curated job postings, invites to exclusive professional meetups and events, and so much more. If you've got a goal to build your professional network this year and you want to level up in your career, use the link in the show notes to join Salesblazers for free. This episode of Sales Players is brought to you by Leadfeeder. You can use the link in the show notes to set up a 21-day extended trial of Leadfeeder for you and your team. You're a sales hunter with literally hundreds of target accounts in your territory and no idea who in your patch is even in the market for your solution. You've pulled all the reports, built all the lists, and you've done a bunch of account research, but you're still in the dark about where to find your low-hanging fruit. And look, you could waste another quarter smiling and dialing, grinding through a cold list, and blasting out emails, or you could do what I do and get Leadfeeder. Leadfeeder identifies the companies that visit your company's website and tracks on-site activity so you can see which leads from your region are ready to buy right now. Leadfeeder has customizable notifications, lead scoring, routing, and it works seamlessly with your CRM system. Right now, Sales Players has got the hookup on an extended 21-day free trial offer, so be sure to use the link in the show notes to sign up. Stop burning time and resources on leads that don't convert and sign up for Leadfeeder. Welcome to Sales Players, the #1 podcast for top players in B2B sales.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the world of sales, this is the show for you.
We're all about bringing you fresh, actionable ideas to supercharge your rev gen game.
We dive deep into the mindset, habits, and tools used by top performers in the industry, generate more leads, close more deals, and to build wealth and financial security in B2B sales.
So if you're ready to level up, you've come to the right place. Join the conversation with other like-minded sales players and continue the discussion beyond the show.
Hit the subscribe button, tune into the Sales Players, and let's start winning together. All right, everybody. Today we have a very exciting episode. We're actually going to be talking about Slack savvy, networking in the digital age with the Salesblazers community lead, Kaela Altman. And today we're going to talk about a new way to network and how Salesforce is really pushing into the new age of building out this amazing sales community that I've actually been a part of for the last, I think maybe over 6 months to almost a year, I guess. And I really wanted to have this conversation to talk about the power of building a network even within Slack and bring Kaela on to talk about how she's building this community, what Salesforce is what their goals are with the Salesblazers community. But before we even start talking about the Salesblazers community, we want to introduce you, Kaela Altman, who is the community manager of the Salesblazers community. So Kaela, give us a little bit of background before we dive right into the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Chase. It's so great to be on the Sales Players podcast. So thank you so much for having me. So my name's Kaela Altman. I'm a senior PMM with the Trailblazer ecosystem and developer marketing team here at Salesforce. So what that means is I work with our community members to tell their stories and to help celebrate them and their contributions to our ecosystem. And part of that includes managing our amazing Salesblazer community. So a little bit about me. I'm a avid reader. I'm a hit enthusiast. I'm an amateur baker, and I am a self-anointed musical theater nerd. So
Wow.
I really enjoy sharing those interests. They all require community. They are all improved and amplified when done with a group of like-minded people. And so I think that translates really, really well into my role as a community manager and bringing that theme into the Salesblazer community.
And Kaela, one of the conversations that we actually had before this call the other day is we were talking about in your past life of you talking about having like worked in trade shows and really creating community. How has the Slack community sort of transferred from like a trade show in person to more of a global connection community place?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. So in my previous roles, I come from an association background, and associations, in my opinion, are just a fancy word for community. But a lot of excuse me, let me start again. So, in my previous roles, I come from an association background, and these are member-based organizations that really do foster and facilitate that sense of community, often through in-person events, education, certifications, et cetera. And I think that one of the things that we learned, especially during the pandemic, is that in the absence of those opportunities to get together on a very large scale, to meet a large group of people quickly, we had to come up with new solutions for how to foster that sense of belonging and that sense of inclusivity. At the time, I did not work at Salesforce, but I have since joined the Salesforce team. And what I think that Slack actually helps us achieve is that sense of immediate connection, because the networking actually happens in real time. So whether that's, posting a question and getting a fun emoji response, or posting a question or an insight and getting, a conversation going in the thread, it has this feeling of immediate gratification and immediate response because we're able to bring such a large group of people together in this real-time environment.
And one of the things, before we get an introduction into the Salesblazers community, the Slack community, I'll just talk about a personal experience. So I am an avid, I would say like a networker, and I would do in-person via LinkedIn. But one thing that I've found is there are a bunch of different Slack groups and communities. And one thing that this Salesblazers community is free to join. So I just saw somebody post about it. I think it was Scott Leese or Richard Harris, one of the two. And I just joined one day, and I was really amazed about, okay, this is Salesforce is behind this, but there are so many conversations happening in there. There's job postings. There's ways for me to level up. And it was just a great way for me to actually connect with other people. And one of the things that we actually do with the sales players Slack group that we have is I'll actually screenshot your all's job postings and post that in for our community. So then people can ask us to be like, hey, if you're looking for a job, because every week, I think it's Thursday or Tuesdays, you all post like some really great job postings. And I've known some AEs that are looking for roles, BDRs, that have actually used that to get in front of great positions.
Thanks for doing that. I love hearing that so much. That's great. That's exactly what we're here to do, to be honest. I mean, I think that let me start again. I think one of the insights that I've gained in the growth of Salesblazer is in talking with individuals, there's this perception that sales is singular, that sales is highly competitive, and that you have to really work independently if you want to make it. I'm doing air quotes for those listening. But what we've actually found in building this community is that, as cliche as it might sound, is we are better together. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that the sales professionals in the Salesblazer community are sharing with each other to build a stronger industry across the board. And I think that that's what's been really incredible, is to actually watch this perception shift. As I'm singular, I have to go at this alone if I want to win, to no, I can actually lean into these other folks who have a different sales approach, a different sales method, a different industry perspective that I can benefit from.
And talk to us. So one thing that I really enjoy is with the company that I work with, Hyros. So we already use Slack. So one of the nice things is I can have, my 10 different channels that I can jump in and out of. And I think that that's one of the benefits of if somebody is already using Slack but didn't think of it as a networking group, how do people get into the Sales Blazers at first?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can join the community by visiting salesblazer.com. So I think that that's the first step is, go to our website and don't just necessarily hop right into the community. That website is actually a hub for an incredible library of content that is crafted in partnership with some of the best sales folks on the planet. So you'll find research reports, you'll find interviews, you'll find tips and tricks and fantastic how-to content, not just about the Salesforce ecosystem and our products, but the sales industry at large. So start there. And then what you'll do is you'll click our join the community button, you'll enter your email address, and then you'll actually be dropped directly into the Salesblazer community on Slack. There is a desktop option if you want to download the app onto your desktop and your mobile device, but you can also do it in browser. It's not quite the same experience, but I think that for folks that maybe can't download new technology onto their devices, or maybe they're feeling a little like I want to try it before I completely commit, the browser version is just as accessible and just as immediate.
And one thing that I've actually personally found out, especially with these types of groups, even though they're free, you do have to do a little bit of work to get in there and really add value. And that's really anytime I join a new group, and I'll just share this with the listeners, especially if you're a new SDR in sales new, but you don't always want to pitch slap somebody when you go into a group like this. And, you don't want to say, oh, hey, book a demo with me. I'm here, I'm selling this, and who needs to buy, who needs more licenses, So I think it's more of a jab, 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 right hook approach that you can utilize these groups with, and you start. It's just like a relationship. It's like you're putting in deposits, and the more deposits, what I have found is the more deposits that I can make in these groups. So when somebody has a question, and I actually do know about that, I respond to that question. Or if somebody asks a question and I don't even understand, or they post something about, I don't even know, I just respond to that. That's really where you create engagement in these communities and how you can get more value, and people will see your name more often, and they know, like, and trust you over a period of time. And then you can become more of a thought leader in these groups.
Yeah, 100%. I like to think of it as a game of yes and. And, to be perfectly transparent, I don't have a sales background, right? Like I come from the nonprofit world. I actually started in theater. I was a, event specialist. I've been an event marketer, and now I'm fortunate enough to be in a community marketing role. But I find that when people post a question, if we're not getting an immediate answer, it's important to just validate that they've been seen. And then we work together to pull in folks to help address the question. And sometimes that means we go to the Trailblazer community at large to pull somebody in. Sometimes that means reaching out to individuals like yourself to say, hey, can you help? And if not, can you help us find somebody who can? And I think that part of that active facilitation is the added value that we're able to bring in our community. And I feel like that's a little bit of what makes it special, is we have so many individuals in there who are willing to say, I don't know personally, but I'm going to help you find somebody who does.
That's amazing. And how many people are in this Slack community? So you are the community manager, and how many users do you have in this community?
We just passed 20K earlier this month. We're very proud.
That is amazing. I think when I started, they were at around 7K. So they're really, it's an active group, and I would think of this, and it's interesting that you come from the association background. In my former life, I owned a valet company, and so I would be part of parking associations and nonprofit associations. And that's really where we would go to these events, and not necessarily would I do business with other businesses in these groups, but we would start to connect. And then maybe when somebody needed valet parking at their event, they would know to call Chase or
Yep.
Ready Valet. And so I think that this is sort of the same, just on a more global scale of how you can utilize that. Also, if you're looking to source, if you have a client that maybe you don't have the resources to handle those things, this could potentially be a place to source actual support on that. I think that that's a great use of that. And so really I want to get into some like effective strategies of like, what are the best practices for using Slack to network effectively?
Yeah. I feel like I could talk for days about this, by the way. So feel free to cut me off if I get to
And we'll keep,
too
yeah,
granular.
like we'll keep them very tactical. So like
Yeah.
very tactical tips, Kaela.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first step to getting started, as silly as it's going to sound, is just get started, right? Join the community,
Mm-hmm.
check out the channels, use the search bar. If you are not in a place where you necessarily have a question to post or an insight to share, maybe just react with an emoji. The Slack emoji experience, I think, is one of the better product features,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's fun. And I think that that's something that's part of the culture that we've really been trying to build in Salesblazer. Is yes, it's effective and yes, it's productive, but we really do try to make it a fun experience as well. And then the second step I would say is that maybe you're reluctant to ask a question because, oh, I don't know if it's the right question. I don't know if this is the right place. Post it. Post it anyway. If it's not the correct home, I give you my promise, like we will help you find the home for that question, whether that's looping in the Trailblazer community, whether that's referring you to, a PM or another, internal resource. We are here to help support what's top of mind for our users. And then the third is to just come back. And I think that that's something that is interesting about Slack is, unlike a website that you can bookmark or something like that, you really do, I think, have to carve out some time to make it part of your, I'm not going to say day to day because it could be a little much, but ongoing catalog of resources that you're checking regularly. I think those are the three best ways to just get started in a Slack community.
And talk to me about, how do you, from a community management perspective, like how do you keep out spam? Am I going to join this group and people are just going to be DMing me and just, trying to sell me whatever? How do you all deal with that?
Yeah, no, that's a really important question. And I think it's only going to become more important as the community grows. So we do have a zero tolerance policy against spam. There's a fine line because I think that one of the benefits of using Slack as a community platform is you can DM folks and you can have one-to-one conversations fairly easily. But we do have a very transparent process of how to report spammy behavior. That includes, an emoji workflow where if you flag something as spam, myself and the other moderators who are in the community will receive a notification and we can take immediate action. If someone is actively promoting a service or a resource, fantastic. Again, we are a community. We want to help people, but we've actually set up a specific channel for those opportunities. So if we see an opportunity or a post go out about a certain promotion of a good or a service in the wrong channel, we'll actually flag it. And then we will redirect it to the appropriate channel and also follow up with the poster to make sure that they understand in the future, this is where this has to live. So we are on board to help folks find their way in the community. I don't take for granted that you go in there and magically know where everything's supposed to be. But we also have to take a very proactive approach to making sure that we're creating an environment that is safe, that is inclusive, and that frankly makes people want to be there.
And let me just ask you this. This is really what I think that a lot of people I think this is just going to be more and more in the future with, LinkedIn is just getting, I think I get a lot of notifications on LinkedIn. Sometimes I do prospecting on other channels like X, Facebook, but really I like Slack because I can have those DM conversations directly in, especially if I have like clients in there, if I have colleagues in there, I can have just direct communication. And like one thing that I really like is me and Scott Leese, we're on texting and then we're also in the Salesblazers Slack community, so we can DM back and forth if we have any questions. So talk to me about some success stories that you have seen, from maybe ICs to VPs to companies that are looking to hire new talent that they weren't able to actually source.
Yeah. So one example that comes to mind is we had a user who was actually part of the pilot back when we first turned the Slack community on in early spring. And they are an IC and they were very young in their career, kind of few years out of college. And they were impacted by a reduction in workforce layoff. And so they actually leaned into the Salesblazer community in terms of, not just leveraging and, hey, I'm open to work, but also engaging, answering open questions, posting questions, reacting to folks, really like leaning into the individuals that were in there and available and eager to help a young professional kind of figure out what their next steps needed to be. And I'm not going to take credit for it. I don't think the community should take credit for it. But when this individual did land a new role, they reached out to me directly and said that they felt that the Salesblazer community and their involvement in there had a direct impact on their success. And so I think that I could boil that down in 15 different ways, but in its simplest form, I think that the community gave this individual the support they needed to just keep going. And in its purest form, I think that's what a community is here to help us do in so many different ways.
That just goes to show you just need to make the ask. And that's one of the things that I have learned in my career, and especially shifting from entrepreneurship to SaaS sales, is how do you get in front of people that are ahead of you, to learn more? You just have to ask the questions. And I'm in some other groups, and even in this group, I love it when people ask these questions of like, I don't know how to book a meeting, or like, maybe it's, I'm having issues with bringing this deal across the line in this way. Does anybody have any suggestions? I love putting in my 2 cents because I think that, it's like somebody gave me their hand before, they reached back, and then it's like, I can help somebody else. And that puts me in service. And that is, makes me feel good, and sometimes just cold calling people and just trying to do deals all the time, I like to give back a little bit. And that's sort of why I'm in this group too,
Yeah. And I mean, I think we hear that all the time. And if I can just take a sidestep a little bit, Salesblazer, when it launched at the beginning of 2023, we weren't sure. We were excited and we were optimistic, but we weren't sure. And I think within the first 24 hours of turning Salesblazer on, I received an email from a user who said that they had been an AE in the Salesforce ecosystem for a number of years and loved Salesforce and loved the energy that you experience at our events, but never felt like it was for them. They felt that it was there for the more technical person, the admin, the architect, the developer. And they always had this sense of like FOMO. And there was something about coming out with a community for sellers with its own hoodie, with its own identity that made this person feel, aha, this is my spot. These are my people. And that user, they came in on day one and they have been in there every single day in some capacity. And it's been so great to watch that person help evangelize the real goal of what we're here to do, which is help build a stronger generation of sales professionals.
Very interesting. And I would say, Salesforce is at its core a very technical product. And I think as sellers, sometimes we do get in the weeds of like, oh, we need a implementer or somebody to answer these more technical questions, but we are the ones that are creating relationships and fostering that, communication between the sales community and our customers as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, these conversations, I think, have always been taking place. Again, I'm not going to say that it wasn't there before, but I think that what our community is achieving is being able to shine a really special teal colored spotlight on those conversations and bringing them to the forefront. Salesforce, in every respect, it is really an ecosystem, and we have marketers and we have sellers and we have admins and we have commerce professionals and, data experts. And I think that what we are seeing more of right now is really a movement to bring those people closer together and help them feel less segmented, for lack of a better term.
And I feel like just in my short time of being in SaaS, I feel like this is building community is actually creating like the go-to-network strategy of like creating that more of in-person back in the, like sort of the, I don't know what you call BNI, but sort of where there's referral relationships, but creating those relationships of where maybe I don't do something, but I know somebody else that does, and I can connect with them, and then we can refer clients back and forth. And this is just something that I feel like it's going more online. It's been in person for a very long time, but this is just taking it to a global scale. Talk about some of the thought leaders that you all are bringing together and putting in the community and some of the events that you're doing there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned a few of them, but I think that a really important part of the community is how we have brought in folks like Scott Leese, like Richard Harris, like Lori Richardson, Lindsay Boggs. These are folks that are incredibly accomplished sellers, sales leaders, sales experts. And they've crafted a methodology and a way of explaining sales that I think is really, really unique and really special because it's so accessible. When I listen to these folks talk, I'm like, I could do this. Like, this is great. Like, I can actually be successful in this if I put my steps into it. And so what we've done is we've partnered with them, and a few of the things that these folks do is, they regularly contribute to our content. They byline and they, help bring their own experiences and their own insights to the forefront, to the forefront so folks can benefit from it. And then they've also been very generous with their time. We were doing in the community for a while, these regularly scheduled coffee chats where you could actually sign up and you could hop into these live video calls with, Richard Harris and talk about, what was top of mind and maybe bounce ideas, et cetera. So I think that what makes our community so strong is that we have all different types of professionals with so many different experiences and just frankly career accomplishments. And they're all willing and excited to pay that forward and to share that out.
Amazing. And, the one feature that I think is my favorite Slack feature is the huddle feature. And I remember Scott and Richard, they did a coffee and it was all like in a huddle, which was a group huddle. I was like, that's pretty cool. But that is also another, like, I'll say like a secret sales tactic that I use is I will huddle people all the time. Like, it's amazing that I can be in my IC role, but then I can jump into Salesblazers and be like, hey, I got a question for you. Can I ping you real quick? And then we can hop onto a live huddle. And so you have access potentially to 20,000 people you could huddle with and have a direct conversation with.
The disclaimer that I want to give our future users is always ask.
Yes,
don't just
always ask. Yes, always ask. Yeah, don't just huddle. Oh, no, that is hopefully somebody hasn't done that. Yeah, let's talk about common mistakes about what not to do. And besides just going in and huddling everybody that you don't know.
Oh no, let me tell you, there was one day I was on a leadership meeting and there was a user who I think they were trying to, I think like it was well intentioned. Like I don't think it was, and they just kept hitting that huddle button and my Slack was going off and I
Oh
kept DMing
no.
like, hey, like
Oh
if you
no.
want to meet, let's set up some time.
Oh
um,
gosh.
so I think, yeah, first and foremost, I think always ask, don't assume.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we do have this incredibly robust network of folks, but that doesn't mean that everybody like lives on Slack the way our moderators, myself included, do. The second mistake is not replying in thread. It sounds super basic, but Slack has an incredible search capability with its channels. And what actually helps fuel that search, as I understand it, again, I'm not a technical person, is when you thread these discussions, it actually makes it much easier for other folks to come in and find that discussion as a reference point. Whereas when it's just individual messages in a channel, it gets very disorganized.
Can you talk
Um,
about, can I stop you right there? Could you talk about like, what would you search for? Like what would be a search, like an example of a search that you've done in there?
yeah, absolutely. Something that I do pretty regularly is I'll search in the intro channel for folks with a certain job title or a
Mm,
certain location.
wow.
And that becomes really effective when I'm looking for somebody to help answer a question,
Mm,
right? Like I am a seller in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm looking for X. Like I'll try to find AEs, I'll try to find them in the Midwest, you know what I mean? And then I'll tag them into the conversation. So I think in its purest form, it helps me find folks who can then become subject matter experts. Another thing that it can do is it can help you like actually identify resources. So, I've mentioned our incredible content library on salesblazer.com, but we also bring a lot of those assets into the community. And so the search feature is a really great way to, find resources, white papers, research, past conversations. So that way, if you're not sure if this question's already been asked, you can actually find out before you post it.
very cool. And that's a functionality of Slack that I did not know how to do that when I first started
Yeah.
using it. And it's just right at the very top where it says the very top of your toolbar. If you are using the desktop or app version, you can just click that search button at the very top, and that's where you'll just type that in, and it'll just bring
Mhm.
up everything. I think that's
Yeah.
very cool to actually see like who in your community is. You can actually meet people. I'm a fully remote, 100% remote worker, so I'm here in Kentucky, middle of Kentucky, but I've met a lot of people um, in this community that are very close around me. Also, I love the weekly. One thing that I will give you a shout out, Kaela, is every week you do on Fridays, they do like top contributors in the Sales Blazers. And I think that this is a way, like, even in any other community, I know in some other types of communities, they do like the gamification. And every week on Friday, Kaela will post the top contributors. So there's like four little heads and it'll put the name down there. And this is a great way for you to get in front of more people. And again, if you're building your personal brand, like that's one of the things that Jesse and I really speak about is build your personal brand. And you are your personal brand. And this is a way for you to insulate yourself, to have resources outside of your maybe current role, or if you're looking for other things, to just be in there. And this is a great way to just be like, hey, I'm actually doing stuff in the community, and I can't remember her name, but she's in California. She's a winemaker, and she's always in the Spiff channel, but I always see her, and we've actually, we've had great DM conversations, and it's really cool how you can meet just people that are into sourdough, into winemaking. I'm into, bourbon and whatever, and it's just it doesn't always have to be about sales.
100%. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Anne. Anne
Yeah,
is amazing. And
Anne's her name.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's been one of the most one of our top enthusiastic contributors. And I think that that's also something that I'd like to call out as part of, the benefit of using Slack is Slack gives us the agility to actually support different disciplines within sales. So whether that's like a product, that at Salesforce, like for example, we've just launched our sales agents channel, to help enable and support our customers who are trying to who are trying to go live with Agentforce. But then we also have a channel for Spiff, and we have a channel for, just talking sales, right? Just general talk shop. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity for folks to find their corner. If they're not looking to speak to all of it, then we're creating an infrastructure where you can find the thing that you want. And you mentioned talking sourdough and talking winemaking. We have a pets channel where it's like, if you just need a shot of happiness, you can go and look at pictures of dogs all day. And let me tell you, I think once a week I go in there and I'm like, I just love the dogs.
Oh,
so I think that we're really trying to find a corner.
Yeah. So Anne actually asked the question. So she has a few questions that she wants to ask. And this is to you, Kaela. So are there any strategies you've had to implement for Salesblazers that are unique to this community? Specifically, I'm thinking of the community containing many distinct groups like sales pros and Salesforce admins and marketers and etc.
Yeah. I don't want to give away all my trade secrets.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. So I think that one of the unique challenges that I saw early on was, making sure that folks understood how to use Slack and what the community could do. And so to help facilitate that, we started a process where we would actually post regular thought starters in different channels for different disciplines. So Tuesdays was, and I might be misremembering, but Tuesdays was generally like a question specific for an AE, right? Mm-hmm. Very specific to sales. Wednesdays was maybe revenue ops, right? How are you managing and pulling revenue, and how are you evaluating that? Excuse me. And then the third day on Thursdays, we would do things more specific to a technical audience, like a sales cloud architect or a sales operations professional. So that's how we really started to socialize how each channel could be used. That's how we started to figure out who those top contributors were going to be based on who was responding to those questions pretty regularly. And over time, we've been able to pull back on those thought starters as the community has started to seed their own questions.
Very interesting. And here's another one. I love this one. So what's a challenge you encounter when managing such a large community, and how do you deal with it?
It sounds like I'm lying, and I'm not. I don't find managing the community to be challenging. I think this is a really gracious group of people. I think that this is a very kind group of people who are all coming together to try to, like you mentioned, Chase, like pay it forward, right? Reaching behind and helping the next person come up in their career. I will say that, just from like a moderation perspective, there's a lot more we can do. I just haven't had the time to really explore it yet. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely top of our list for next year, is making sure that we're creating that fun environment where folks have things to regularly engage with, even if they're not ready to actively post a question. So I can't say that offhand I can think of any particular challenge other than just wanting to keep the fire going.
And, this is another great question she asks. And really, I think that this is going towards like how other SaaS companies and companies can create a community. But what outreach strategies do you use when trying to grow the community outside of just Slack and getting people to sign up?
Definitely our events. I think that, when you go to a Agentforce World Tour event or you go to Dreamforce, it gives us that opportunity to actually talk about our community in person and, get to the core of like what this audience is looking for in a community and how we can help deliver that. So I think that there's a definite like grassroots kind of evangelism that happens. I think that, in my opinion, one of the best moments for me, just going back to your top contributor post, is when I see folks post that on their LinkedIn, like, hey, I was a top contributor this week. And the congratulations that come in, and the so well deserved, like the accolades that individual users receive because of their contributions, I think is a great testament to what the community represents. And so we do see folks coming into the community because of that evangelism, because it piques enough of the curiosity, like, hey, I want to go play too. I want to do that too. And then I think just also making sure that we're socializing it across, the marketing channels that are available to us, and talking about why this is a very special place for sales professionals.
This is very interesting. I didn't really realize this, but basically, I guess this Slack community is taking like a live event and it's continuing that connection with people, your team. Very interesting. I think that
We're
this
trying.
okay.
Yeah, I think we're really trying. And I was at an event yesterday, and one of the original like OGs, like going back to before Salesblazer, this individual's been in our Sales Cloud community pretty much since its inception, was there. And, it's been amazing to watch his career change and grow. He's been on more of the technical side, but very much supporting the technology that enables the sales teams to perform well. And, he had so many wonderful ideas for where we go next. And I think that that's also something I want to make sure that I'm sharing is we do try to take the feedback from the users around what will help them. And then we try to kind of go there. I had an acting teacher in college who used to say, go to the open space. And I think that that's the philosophy that we try to deliver in the community, is what are the opportunities and how do we go towards them and make sure that we're filling those gaps on behalf of the users.
And before we come to a close, let's talk a little bit about how, I think we've talked about how ICs can use this. How can like VPs and consultants use the Slack groups?
As humbling as it is to admit, I haven't quite figured that piece out yet.
Okay.
But what I will say is there's a handful of sales leaders, directors, VPs, SVPs, who are a part of our community and have said that where they see the most potential is for their teams. So, as a people manager, there's only so much coaching that you yourself can deliver to a team. There's only so much, feedback you can give, and performance evaluations that you can do, and goals that you can personally set. Sometimes you have to bring in outside resources to help your team and figure out what is working for them. And I have received feedback from VPs saying that, they're referring their team members to the community so that they can get a different perspective, a different approach. Not all sales methodologies work for all sales professionals. And so sometimes we have to do a little bit of digging to find what's going to work best. So we're really here to help, I think, support sales teams on behalf of their leadership. And I think that there's other opportunities to help our senior sales leaders also continue to develop in our space.
Amazing. And yeah, that's something that I also do suggest, especially if you are an IC, maybe you're an AE and you have a SDR below you. Like, I always recommend SDRs, especially if you're new into a role, is to get in here and really ask questions and start to learn other techniques from other people. And one thing is it's just like a buffet. You can try a bunch of different dishes and start to see like what really you like. And that's one of the cool things about sales is there's so many different sales and thought leaders. We had Jeb Blount on the episode. I love Jeb and I love his message, but sometimes I'll listen to somebody that, has a whole, like I might listen to Alex Hormozy. I might listen to, there's just so many, Cole Gordon. But it's like, just keep finding different methodologies that resonate with you. And I think that the Salesblazers is a great place to do that.
If I can,
yes.
Yeah, because you mentioned it's a buffet, 100%. So one of the ground rules that I actually share, we have a regular meetup for the Sales Blazers every month. And one of the ground rules is that it's a potluck. You are expected to bring something to share. You are expected to come. You are expected to contribute. And then we also do say it's like a buffet, meaning like go through the line, try everything, but then also leave room, right? Don't go back for seconds until everybody's had a chance to go through the line. And so those are actually two of the ground rules that folks hear me say more than anything is when you come to any community, not just sales based, but when you come to a community, you will get the most out of it if you bring something to share. And that can sometimes be as simple as an intro, a photo of your cat, a recipe for sourdough, or your sales methodology. It can really be anything. But we really do try to lean into contributions when they're made, because I think that that's what makes the community really, really thrive.
And that is so true. And I learned this methodology of networking. It was called connect, serve, and ask. And it's like you always want to be interested in the other person. Like that's something that I try to do as a seller, is always try to connect with my customer and really understand who they are, what are their joys in life, and then see how I can serve them, and then maybe make my ask of, do they want to make the sale? It doesn't have to be very quick, but really, this has been an awesome conversation, Kaela. This is an amazing community. So how do we join this workspace? Like, how do we get there?
Yeah, I believe that there's a link in the show notes, if I'm
There is
not
a link in the show
mistaken.
notes, yes,
There is a
but
link
we'll
in the
say
show
it.
notes.
We'll say it for sure. We're gonna type it out as well. It's salesblazers.com. That's where you can enter in, learn more about the actual Slack community, which is free to join. Is that correct?
100% free. Yes.
Okay, and is it for everybody, or is there anybody that we're excluding in there?
No, we are an inclusive community. So even if you're not a traditional seller, but you're curious, come on in. We are
Yep.
we are ready to receive you.
And I would also say, if you're curious about Salesforce,
Yes.
it's a great place to just get introduced to the sales community there. So join today. And Kaela, this has been an amazing conversation, and I look forward to swapping recipes with you for some good sourdough.
Thank you, Chase. And for those listening, I will say that Chase is often recognized as a top contributor. So if nothing else, come on in. You can chat with Chase throughout the week,
That's right.
and a bunch of other amazing, amazing, amazing career sales professionals. But shameless promotion aside, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has just been a lot of fun. So thank you.
Well, and cheers to 2025, because 2024 has been a great year, and I really do think that this community is just getting started. So
Yeah,
join
absolutely.
today, and again, the link is salesblazers.com. It's not sale blazers, it's sales plural blazer.com, and check the show notes below. Thanks again, Kaela.
Thank you.
Well, hey.